I'm Liliana Blackstar. I am an astrologer and a tarot reader. My website is hestiasmuse.net, and you can find me on Facebook with the Facebook page Hestia's Muse. So today is the spring equinox. Happy spring! It is the first day of Aries season. The sun entered Aries, and the day when the sun enters Aries is considered the astrological new year, because we, in the astrological community, go by a calendar of the seasons, and so we look at the beginning of Aries season as the start of a new year. So we have this new year energy, and it's also the day that we celebrate International Astrology Day. So happy International Astrology Day, happy spring, and happy spring equinox and Aries season. Yes, I am seeing comments now, so thank you. I know now that I will see the comments when they come in. So it is Aries season, and we have finished the winter. The winter astrologically is over. Yesterday was the last day. It was the end of Pisces season. We're still a little bit, depending on where you live, in the rainy season, but part of spring is getting that rain coming in. So when we talk about the astrological year, we have this circle, and it's divided into 4 quadrants by the seasons. So there's the spring quadrant, summer, fall, and winter. And each of those 4 quadrants has 3 signs. So the sun will move through 3 signs per season. And for the spring quadrant, we have Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. So for Aries season, it is definitely bringing that energy of starting something new and fresh. We've been kind of in this wintry energy. We might have started preparing our gardens already, but when the sun moves into Aries, we really finally feel that push to like step out into the world and start fresh, start doing whatever it is we're going to be doing this year. Aries is very motivated, very like the first to jump into something. When the store opens, Aries wants to be the first one through the door. And so that's kind of the energy that we have with spring. One way to look at the quadrants of and the process of the wheel of the year is through the seasons. And so I like to think about how our ancestors were connected to the seasons, especially back during a time when we were more connected to our agricultural process. We still definitely rely on agriculture and the seasons for all of our growing of food. But now we can look at how things used to be to kind of help us understand the energy of these seasons. So many of our ancestors would have been farmers, or at least gardeners, and very connected to growing things. So when the spring equinox came, this was the time of year that we were getting ready to plant the crops that were going to sustain us and be harvested in the summer. So in that very beginning of spring, you ask yourself, like, what am I going to garden this year? What am I going to plant? You might have a different crop that you want to plant than you've planted before, depending on what's needed by you and by the community. So you kind of ask yourself, like, what kind of farmer am I this year? What am I going to grow? And the sign of Aries is very much about self-identity. It is about proclaiming who you are to the world around you with pride and passion. So at this time of the astrological season, the farmers would say, this year I am going to be a strawberry farmer and I'm going to plant a whole bunch of strawberries. Or I'm going to be a pig farmer and I'm going to raise a bunch of pigs. And this is kind of the time that they would definitely make that step, set that intention. And we can also do that for ourselves at this time of year, just kind of like you do at New Year's in January when we celebrate the calendar New Year. But there's definitely an energetic support with setting intentions at this time of year, especially today, since today is the very beginning of this spring quadrant and the astrological new year. So it's really a powerful practice today to think again about what your intentions are for the coming year. What are you growing? What are you cultivating? What are you offering to the rest of the world? What would you like to do with your energy this year? And set those intentions and let the energy of the season and the sun in Aries provide you with that extra passion and motivation to really get out there and do what you're going to do. And so we'll have, the sun in Aries for a month, and we'll have lots of opportunity to kind of reflect and define who we are this year. What are we doing? Where are we going? What are we planting? And using I am phrases is a really powerful way to tap into this Aries energy, because the Aries phrase is I am, fill in the blank. And so when you're setting your intentions and working on manifesting, remember that instead of saying, I am going to be this, or I want to do this, phrase it with those powerful I am statements. I am, fill in the blank. What are you planning on being this year? And state it in that positive present tense statement. So then moving on a little bit through the spring, after Aries season comes Taurus, and the Taurus phrase starts with I have. And so definitely as our ancestors and those farmers moved through Aries season, after they made the decision and set their intentions and announced to the world who they were, they next had to take stock of their belongings and their surroundings in order to use all of the resources available to them to grow those crops the best that they could. So in Taurus season, it's an earth sign and everything is really starting to grow. Those plants that we planted are starting to sprout, and we're needing to make sure that we fertilize them and water them and tend to them. And this is a time of really checking in with what your earthy environment is like, and if that environment is supporting the I am of Aries. And how can you attain the things, the physical manifest things, the money that you need to support the I am statement that you made in Aries season? And you can use Taurus season to continue those positive affirmations by starting with I have. So with Aries, it is I am an astrologer. And then with Taurus season, it's I have the support and clients that I need to support my practice. And it's a really good time to reflect on what my tools and resources are. I use the internet for a lot of my work. I need books so I can continue learning my craft and my practice. And, you know, I might have to make investments into advertising or something like that to keep my business going. So this is like adding the fertilizer and using the things that we have. So our ancestors at this time would have been working very closely with the earth and definitely taking stock of everything they had, taking inventory, and making sure that they have enough stuff on hand to help them keep growing this crop into the summer for fruition. And then the late part of spring is Gemini. And Gemini's key statement is I know, or I think. It's about the mind, because going back to this process of the year, we wake up, it's spring, we pronounce to the world, I am, and we plant that crop. And then we check in with our earthly needs. And next we're going to need to share through communication and thought with our community what we're doing, because if we're planning on growing a certain crop that year, then it's helpful to talk to the other people around us. Gemini is about learning, so maybe someone else in your community has also grown a certain type of crop that you're doing and you need to learn from them. And maybe there's someone else that has something to learn from you. So it's about sharing and reaching out and learning, because this was an important part of the process. You can't just grow your crop and not tell anyone about it or talk to anyone about it, unless you're just going to keep it all to yourself, which I guess you could, but in very communal based communities, which is what most of our ancestors lived very communally, sharing information, asking questions, talking to people, and kind of promoting yourself so that they know, hey, when summertime comes, this is the person I go to for strawberries, and this is the person I go to for eggs, right? Because you've gotten out there and you've shared yourself with your words, you've talked to people, and you've learned enough from other people to really know the little tips and tricks to make your crop grow the best that it can. So when we move into Gemini season, that energy of sharing and collecting knowledge becomes the focus of those powerful manifestation statements. And so these build on each other, as you can see. I am an astrologer. I have the support of clients for a successful business, and I know how to share myself and where to get more information to be the best astrologer that I can be. So you can kind of like use this whole season to continually work on intention setting and manifesting, because you just think of it like being a farmer and growing those crops. You don't just plant them in the spring and then forget about it. It's a constant process of working with your resources and materials that you have and sharing yourself, putting yourself out there, learning the tips and tricks of the trade, weeding, fertilizing, watering, keeping it going. So that's very much the energy of doing that is supported by Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Gemini is also a very curious sign, so it wants to understand. It's about feeling curious and wanting to look at what else is going on in the world around you besides just at your little farm, if that makes sense. So I'm going to check some comments here. If you don't share, you get the boring one vegetable soup instead of stone soup. Yes, that's a great example. You want to build that community and reach out and share so that when it's time to harvest, you don't just have carrots, you have someone to trade with because you've established these relationships. So, you can say, hey, I'll trade you some carrots for some potatoes and get some eggs from this person down the street, and this person has fruit, and you all come together and create a meal. So the sharing part is very important. And part of what we have going on right now is, it's Aries season. So when we're talking about Aries, it's important to look at Mars, because the planet Mars is the ruler of the sign Aries. It is that planet of passionate energy and drive and willpower. And so when we look to talk about Aries energy and what we're going to experience through Aries season, one thing that we want to do is look at where Mars is. What is Mars doing, and what is he teaching us right now? And Mars is in Gemini. And so we kind of have Mars at one end of the spring and the sun at the beginning end of the spring. And the sun will slowly start moving closer, to that Gemini energy. But Mars in Gemini is definitely motivated to get out there and talk and share and be social. It brings the passion and drive to the realm of curiosity and learning. So it's definitely a good time to set those intentions for what are you going to learn about? What are you curious about? What do you want to really tap into to help your spirit and your intentions grow? So what do you want Mars to help you tap into on the intellectual level as it's moving through Gemini? So that's another good thing to remember as we go through Aries season. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will answer them to the best of my ability. So I am excited for spring. I am so glad that it's here. I already started a little herb garden. And there's just so many exciting things going on. And I woke up this morning and I was just like, oh, Aries season. We stepped out of that kind of foggy underwater feeling of Pisces season. And I don't know if anyone else felt it like I did, but I definitely felt the shift out of Pisces season into Aries season. I was like, here we are. We've arrived. Happy New Year. Now we can kind of finally start fresh. Do I have a least favorite part of Aries season is a question. And that's a really good question, because every sign has its pros and its cons. It has its strengths and its not so great parts. So with Aries season, some of the downfalls of that Aries energy can be the tendency to jump into things head first without really having a plan or looking where you're going. And there's also a tendency to be so sure of yourself that you can be what was the word that just slipped out of my head? So sure of yourself that you are a little overly aggressive with your energy because, hey, I am this is what I'm doing, and let's just do it, because Aries brings that energy of excitement. It's the cardinal fire sign. It wants to be first, but the problem with jumping into something first is you're kind of maybe going into unexplored territory, which we need those Aries people and that Aries energy to explore new things, because if no one ever tried anything new, there wouldn't be a lot of fun or new discoveries coming in. But we also know that the explorers have a dangerous job. They, sometimes get into trouble. They get into situations that they weren't expecting. They get too far ahead of themselves and realize, oh wait, this is not where I wanted to be at all. So it's important to remember through Aries season that you can still be flexible. You have set your intention of, I am going to do this, and if you start doing it and things are going wrong and not working out and you're feeling just frustrated or trapped, it's okay to change your intention and say, okay, I'm not actually very good at growing this type of crop, so there's still time to try and grow something else instead, right? Because it's still that fresh spring energy. So we don't have to tie ourselves down to any specific thing, because Aries season is definitely, let's just jump in and do it, and then afterwards you're like, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. All right, there's another question. What daily activity or ritual can we do to fully embrace each of the signs, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini? So, using those affirmations, the example of I am, I have, and I share, is a great way to start every day during the spring. You can wake up and, use those positive present tense affirmations to state to the universe and to yourself, I am, I have, and I share. And in the process of doing that, you might want to, check in with the daily moon. Where is the moon today? And especially when the moon is in the signs of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, that energy will be really deeply felt, because the moon represents, our inner emotions, our watery state. And so just paying attention to where the moon is, it won't always be in one of those three signs, but when it is in one of those three signs, you can take that as a time to spend a little bit of extra time, energy, and focus thinking about that spring energy and what's bubbling up under the surface, what's watering these desires and these drives. And just be excited about what season that we're in. Just let yourself feel that love and passion for the spring, and the spring around us, but the spring within yourself, because this is definitely there's what's happening physically, and then it's also happening within ourselves metaphorically. So the earth is, at least in the northern hemisphere, experiencing this rebirth of spring and this season of growth, but that's also happening within you. And so just taking a little bit of time to honor that process daily, to recognize the things that are growing, the things that are new, the things that you are curious about and want to share, and just taking a little bit of time every day to honor that and acknowledge that. So thank you for that question. So I have a little bit more time, so I'm just waiting to see if there are any other questions and trying to think about what else it is that I wanted to say. Well, I can just share a little bit more about myself. I'm an astrologer and I do personal astrology readings. If you want to set up a reading with me, you can contact me through the Seattle Psychics Association website. You can find me on there and it has my contact information. Or you can find my Facebook page, Hestia's Muse, and send me a message on there and we can set you up for a session. I also have a Patreon blog where I give insights and share like astrology lessons and share the current moon cycles and sun cycles and talk about other planets. So that's one way that I offer my services also. I have another question. How can we support children with these energies? So the energy of the spring quadrant, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, is very connected to children, because we not only can think about these quadrants of the wheel of the year as seasons, but we can think of them as seasons in a person's lifespan. And that first spring segment definitely relates to the process of being a child. When we are very young, we are experiencing that Aries energy of starting to understand that we are an individual and starting to define ourselves as who we are, and we explore and try new things. And you know, it's like that Aries energy I was talking about. Sometimes we get hurt because we jump into something we didn't understand, but that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And, you know, children, especially the ages of 1 through 7, are very much like portraying this Aries energy everywhere they go. No matter what their sun sign or moon sign is, just being under the age of 7 is the embodiment of Aries energy, right? And then you move a little past that into the Taurus season of your childhood, when you start recognizing your relationship with the world and with the things around you. You start developing your tastes for what foods you like and don't like, what brings you comfort, what brings you joy, and how can I get more of that? Like children from the ages of 7 up to early teenage years are definitely, you know, they've realized that they like a certain type of cookie, and so they're starting to learn how to manipulate their environment so that they can get more of those cookies. And that's just an example that can be used metaphorically to understand that Taurus energy of understanding your environment and what you need in order to feel good and safe and supported, and taking the actions to bring in more of that in your life. And then in Gemini season, it's that early teenage years when we're really like, I'm this and I like this. We already know who we are and what we like, but now we really want to share and express and connect with other people, and we start developing our social circles a lot more, and we are definitely getting a little more curious about the broader world beyond just our home life. And so when we talk about supporting children through the energy of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, just recognizing that children are this energy and letting them go through this process and supporting them and understanding like they are expressing Aries, Taurus, and Gemini energy, and not shaming them for it or holding it against them, because, you know, they're learning and this is how they're learning to interact with the world. So there is another question. It says, Ostara, Spring Equinox, and Easter are all tied together. Can you share any insights or thoughts on that? And absolutely, all over the world, there are celebrations of spring. We as humans noticed that seasons happen in a cycle and found ways to celebrate that energy, and most cultures around the world have some kind of spring festival celebration, whether it's religious or mundane, that is about celebrating the return of the sun. After the spring equinox, the days start getting longer again, and we're having that energy of the sun taking back, like the sun coming back into power after the winter. And we see around us things are growing, and people understood this as a rebirth of the earth, or a rebirth of their gods or holy figures, and a rebirth of themselves. So, the reason that Easter and Ostara are celebrated around the spring equinox are because those celebrate rebirth and renewal. And there are many others that I'm sure I don't know the exact names for, but there are many other festivals that celebrate rebirth and renewal. And it's just a celebration of spring and the recognition that we've been through the winter, we made it, and we've finally come out to this fresh new start, and things are going to grow again. It's going to, life is going to return after we've gone through the dark half of the year. We're, what's not to celebrate about that? It's beautiful. So I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys and talking about the astrology of spring. And I'm super excited for Aries season, and then of course the rest of spring coming up. I would be honored to help you look at your own astrological chart and do a reading for anyone who's interested. And another thing that's coming up is Spring Mysteries Festival, which Brenna Grace is going to come on next and talk to us about Spring Mysteries Festival. But it's definitely another exciting way to celebrate the spring energy and the rebirth and renewal of the land and of ourselves. So without any further ado, I will pass it on to Brenna. Stay tuned, she'll be showing up pretty soon. But thank you for stopping by and supporting us here at Seattle Psychics Association. And have a great spring. Thank you.